Why is it that the most destructive love can feel like the most powerful? Why do the relationships that tear us apart often grip us the hardest? It's strange, isn't it? The way someone can make your heart race, your skin buzz, your world spin, while quietly draining the very life out of you. We call it passion. We call it chemistry. But maybe, just maybe, what we're really feeling is something far more ancient, far more psychological, far more hidden beneath the surface of our consciousness. Because toxic love doesn't arrive softly. It crashes in like a storm, intense, overwhelming, almost mystical in its pull. And before we even understand what's happening, we're already entangled, hooked, spellbound. You know that feeling, the rush of their attention, the heat of their words, the way their presence makes everything brighter, sharper, almost unreal. It feels like destiny, yet it leaves us trembling. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that's where our story begins, not with the other person, but with the hidden parts of ourselves that come alive in their presence. Toxic relationships feel so strong not because they're real love, but because they activate the unhealed, unseen, unintegrated corners of our psyche. They stir our wounds. They awaken our shadows. They echo the emotional patterns we never truly understood. In Jung's view, the human heart is drawn again and again to the familiar, even if the familiar hurts, especially if it hurts. That intensity we feel, it's the psyche recognizing an old pattern and gripping it as if it were home. So before we dive deeper, take a breath. This journey isn't about blame or shame. It's about illumination. Because once we understand why toxic love feels so powerful, we can finally step out of the spell and step into something that actually nurtures the soul. Let's walk a little deeper into the maze. If toxic love feels so powerful, it's not because we're weak. It's because our brains and our wounds begin speaking the same language. The body doesn't lie. The heart doesn't lie. But the nervous system, it remembers. It remembers every longing, every fear, every moment of emotional hunger we've carried since childhood. And when someone enters our life with the right mix of affection and unpredictability, that system lights up like a flare. There's a reason these relationships feel addictive. They are built on cycles, brief highs, sudden lows, emotional whiplash that confuses the mind and hooks the soul. A burst of sweetness, then cold distance. A storm, then a rainbow. A withdrawal, then a sudden flood of attention that feels like salvation. This pattern triggers a chemical cocktail so intense that it feels like love, even when it's far from it. But here's where Carl Jung steps in with his quiet, piercing wisdom. He believed that what we call chemistry is often the psyche recognizing an unresolved inner image, an archetype, a wound, a forgotten story. In Jung's view, the people who ignite this explosive chemistry aren't random. They resonate with something unfinished inside us. They mirror the parts we've suppressed. They awaken the shadows we've avoided. The unpredictability, the longing, the craving, they all feed the unconscious belief that this time, maybe the ending will be different. Maybe the love we didn't receive before will finally be given. Toxic dynamics often echo old emotional blueprints, and our psyche clings to them with desperate hope. As Jung said, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. The intensity isn't the treasure, the lesson hidden beneath it is. So if you've ever wondered why you couldn't walk away, why the connection felt cosmic even when it was damaging, the truth is simple and heartbreaking. Your heart wasn't just chasing them. It was chasing something unresolved inside yourself. If the chemistry is the hook, then the shadow is the quiet puppeteer behind the curtain. Jung believed that every person carries a hidden side, the unspoken fears, the buried longings, the pieces of ourselves we never learned to hold with compassion. And toxic love, it has a way of pulling those pieces out of the dark with astonishing precision. You know that feeling. The sudden insecurity that wasn't there before, the fear of abandonment that rises out of nowhere, the desperate urge to prove your worth to someone who gives affection like crumbs. These emotions don't come from the relationship alone. They come from the shadows we've carried long before that person appeared. Toxic partners don't create our wounds, they activate them. In Jung's view, the shadow isn't evil. It's simply the part of us that never received light. The part that whispers, "Stay. Try harder. Maybe then you'll be enough." And when a relationship swings between tenderness and coldness, that whisper grows louder. Because inconsistency wakes the oldest fears, the fear of being unworthy, unnoticed, forgotten. And here's the twist that almost no one wants to admit. The shadow is drawn to what feels familiar, not what feels safe. If you grew up learning that love must be earned, toxic love feels like home. If you learned that affection comes with conditions, you'll chase conditional love as if it's oxygen. The shadow loves the pattern, even when the soul is breaking under its weight. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists." And it's true. The more we fight the discomfort without understanding it, the tighter the bond becomes. We mistake emotional survival for passion. We mistake anxiety for desire. We mistake chaos for depth. But none of this means you are broken. It means you are human. It means your psyche is pulling you toward a deeper truth. Not so you can stay trapped, but so you can finally see the invisible chains. Because once the shadow is seen, it loses its power to control you. There's a moment in every toxic relationship when you realize the pull isn't just about the person in front of you. It's about the echo of something much older. Something that lives beneath logic, beneath adulthood, beneath every mask you've learned to wear. It's the echo of the child you once were. The one who learned what love felt like long before you had the words to understand it. Carl Jung believed that the patterns formed in childhood don't simply disappear. They live in the unconscious as emotional blueprints. So when someone enters your life with the same emotional rhythm you once knew, warm one minute, cold the next, something inside you awakens. Not love, recognition. A deep, instinctive familiarity. And that familiarity can feel intoxicating. Because the child within us remembers the longing, the reaching, the hope that if we just behaved better, loved harder, held on tighter, someone would finally choose us fully. Toxic relationships recreate that dynamic with haunting precision. The adult mind knows something is off, but the inner child senses a chance to finally win the love that once felt just out of reach. In Jung's view, this is not coincidence. It is the psyche attempting to heal itself through repetition. He wrote that the unconscious brings back old wounds so that we can finally face them with awareness, not helplessness. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like healing. It feels like gravity. It feels like destiny. It feels like you're being pulled into a story you didn't write, yet somehow know by heart. And that's the tricky part. The wound doesn't crave the person, it craves resolution. But instead of healing, we often end up reenacting the past with new faces, hoping this time the ending will be different. This is why the bond feels unbreakable, why leaving feels impossible, why the pain feels strangely familiar. You're not just walking through a relationship, you're walking through a memory, one your soul has carried for years. But every memory can be rewritten. Every pattern can be brought into the light. The moment you realize the intensity is coming from within you, not from them, something powerful begins to shift. There's a moment in every toxic bond where you begin living in two emotional worlds at once. One world is built on hope. The hope that the person you love will finally show up fully, finally soften, finally offer the tenderness they once dangled in front of you like a promise. The other world is built on fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear that maybe this turbulent connection is the best you'll ever have. And it's between these two worlds that the addictive cycle is born. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, those unpredictable bursts of affection that arrive just when you're about to give up. But Carl Jung would have explained it differently. He would have said that the psyche becomes trapped in a symbolic loop, circling around an unresolved inner conflict. The person you're attached to becomes both the source of comfort and the source of pain, mirroring an internal split you haven't yet integrated. Think of it like this. Every time they pull away, an old fear awakens inside you. And every time they return with sweetness, an old hope springs back to life. The highs feel like fireworks in the dark. The lows feel like falling without ground beneath you. But together, they create a rhythm that feels strangely meaningful, as if the chaos itself carries a secret message you can't afford to ignore. In Jung's view, this push-pull dynamic is a sign that the soul is seeking growth through contrast. The intensity isn't proof of compatibility. It's evidence of a lesson trying to reveal itself. The very person who stirs your deepest longing also stirs your deepest insecurity, because both emotions come from the same psychological root. And here's the part that can be hardest to admit. Sometimes we hold on to these relationships not because of the love we receive, but because of the love we remember receiving in moments of sweetness. The memory becomes the anchor. The hope becomes the leash. The fear becomes the glue. But no cycle, no matter how powerful, is unbreakable. Once you understand that the emotional highs are manufactured by unpredictability, not genuine connection, the spell begins to loosen. The fog begins to lift. You start seeing the pattern instead of drowning in it. And that realization is the first quiet step toward freedom. One of the most haunting parts of toxic love is the belief that what you're feeling is a soul connection. That this intensity, this pull, this electric charge between you must mean something cosmic. People talk about twin flames, destiny, karmic bonds, as if the universe itself orchestrated the meeting. And in the moment, it feels true. How could something this powerful be anything less than fate? But Carl Jung offers a different lens. He wrote that when two people meet and feel an immediate, overwhelming attraction, it is often the psyche recognizing an inner projection, not a soulmate. In Jung's view, we don't fall in love with the person at first. We fall in love with the part of ourselves that we see reflected in them. Or, more painfully, the part of ourselves we believe they can heal. That's why the bond feels spiritual. Not because the other person is your destiny, but because they awaken something sacred within you, the longing for wholeness. Jung described this as the meeting between your conscious self and your inner archetypes. You project your ideal lover, your protector, your healer, your savior onto another human being, and suddenly they seem extraordinary, larger than life, almost mythical. But here's the truth. Projections feel spiritual because they come from the deepest layers of the unconscious. They carry the weight of your forgotten dreams, your unspoken fears, your unmet needs. The connection feels profound not because of who they are, but because of what they symbolize. And when the relationship turns toxic, when the sweetness fades, when the uncertainty begins, something inside you refuses to let go. Because you're not just grieving the person, you're grieving the image, the meaning, the story you built around them. You're grieving the hope that they could complete something unfinished within you. In Jung's view, this is not a failure. It is an invitation. The projection is meant to dissolve, revealing the truth. The qualities you admired in them were your own undeveloped strengths. The passion you felt was your own depth rising to the surface. The connection that felt divine was actually your psyche calling you home. And once you see this, the illusion begins to crack, gently, compassionately, in its own time. There comes a point in every toxic relationship when you begin to feel a strange emptiness, a hollow place beneath the ribs that never quite fills, no matter how many apologies, reconciliations, or late-night promises you collect. It's a hunger that feels ancient, almost primal. And the painful truth is that the relationship didn't create this hunger. It simply exposed it. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries an inner deprivation, not because of failure, but because the psyche is always reaching toward wholeness. That longing becomes unusually sharp in toxic dynamics, where affection comes in fragments and reassurance arrives like rare rain in a desert. You find yourself craving not just love, but certainty, not just closeness, but safety, not just connection, but the feeling of finally being enough. Toxic partners have a way of activating that hunger. Their unpredictability keeps the deprivation alive. Their inconsistency makes you work harder. Their emotional distance convinces you that if you can just do a little more, be a little more, heal a little more, then the love you seek will finally solidify. But in Jung's view, this hunger doesn't point outward. It points inward. It reveals the parts of yourself that were never nurtured, the emotional needs that were ignored, the tenderness you learned to silence. The toxic partner becomes a symbol of all the reassurance you never received, all the validation you once needed but didn't get. And so your heart chases them not because they are the source of fulfillment, but because they mirror the wound. This is why letting go feels impossible. Because walking away feels like abandoning the hope that the wound will finally be healed. But the healing was never going to come from them. As Jung beautifully put it, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The real nourishment comes from meeting the hunger with compassion, not from seeking someone else to feed it. And here's the turning point. The moment the fog begins to thin, the realization that no relationship should feel like starvation. Love should not demand you shrink into fragments. It should not require you to earn your own worth. When you finally see that the hunger was never a sign of their importance, but of your own unmet needs, the spell begins to weaken. Not broken yet, but trembling. There's a moment, subtle, almost imperceptible, when you begin to realize that the person in front of you isn't just a partner. They're a mirror. Not the soft, flattering kind we crave, but the kind that reflects every fracture, every insecurity, every hidden fear you've tucked away. And the strangest part? That reflection pulls you closer instead of pushing you away. Carl Jung often wrote that relationships are psychological laboratories. Through them, we discover who we truly are, not the identity we show the world, but the one that lives beneath the surface. Toxic love accelerates this process with brutal intensity. It exposes your triggers. It reveals your emotional blind spots. It wakes your deepest patterns like a sudden light switched on in a dark room. Why? Because the toxic partner, whether they mean to or not, becomes an amplifier of the qualities you haven't yet accepted within yourself. Their coldness highlights your fear of abandonment. Their criticism awakens your old self-doubt. Their inconsistency brings forth your longing to be chosen. And the more you try to fix the relationship, the more your psyche reveals the wounds you've avoided. In Jung's view, this is the psyche's way of inviting you into growth. He said that what irritates us in others often points to something unresolved within. So the emotional chaos isn't random, it's symbolic. It's the inner self knocking on the door, saying, "Look here, this is where it hurts. This is where you've hidden your strength." And that's the paradox. Toxic relationships feel magnetic because they pull our inner conflicts to the surface. The partner becomes a living embodiment of the places we have not yet healed, not because they are better, wiser, or more powerful, but because they reflect the exact qualities we are learning to confront. This is why the connection feels faded, why the struggles feel meaningful, why you keep thinking there must be a lesson buried inside the pain. In Jungian terms, there is the lesson of self-recognition. The relationship becomes a stage where your inner battles are played out in real time. And when you finally understand this, when you see the relationship not as evidence of unworthiness, but as a symbolic mirror, something shifts. Not explosively, not dramatically, but quietly, like a thread loosening at the edge of a knot. Suddenly, you're no longer fighting for the relationship. You're beginning to fight for yourself. Every toxic relationship has a threshold, a quiet, trembling moment when something inside you shifts. At first, It feels like exhaustion, like the soul whispering, "I can't keep doing this." But beneath that fatigue lies something far more powerful: awakening. Not dramatic, not loud, but unmistakably real. For a long time, the bond felt unshakable. The emotions were too intense, the memories too vivid, the hope too deeply rooted. You told yourself the connection was rare, that people wouldn't understand, that letting go would mean giving up on something meaningful. But slowly, almost gently, the illusion starts to unravel. This unraveling is sacred. Carl Jung described this as the moment when consciousness expands beyond the spell of the unconscious. The projection begins to fade. The archetype dissolves. And you suddenly see the person not as a symbol of your healing, but simply as they are: human, flawed, incapable of giving what you were desperately trying to pull from them. And that clarity hurts. Not sharply, but deeply, because you realize the pain wasn't just about what they did or didn't do. It was about everything you hoped they could be, everything you hoped the connection might eventually fix. You're not just mourning the relationship, you're mourning the story you built around it. But Jung would say this mourning is necessary. It is the psyche reclaiming its power. The moment the unconscious patterns rise into the light, the emotional grip begins to weaken. Not instantly, not cleanly, but inevitably. You start noticing how often you felt anxious, how often you doubted yourself, how often you tried to earn affection that should have been freely given. And then comes the realization that changes everything. Love is not supposed to feel like emotional guessing. Love is not supposed to make you disappear. This clarity doesn't feel triumphant at first. It feels like standing in a quiet doorway, unsure whether you're ready to walk through. But something in you knows, if you stay, the cost will be your own spirit. And that's the beginning of liberation. Not the final moment, but the first true step. You start turning inward instead of chasing outward. The energy you once poured into holding the relationship together begins to return to you, drop by drop, breath by breath. The heart begins to remember itself. There is a moment, quiet, steady, unmistakable, when the storm inside you finally begins to settle. Not because the past stops hurting, not because the memories disappear, but because you realize the most powerful connection you will ever experience is the one you build with your own soul. And that realization changes the entire landscape of your heart. At first, the silence after a toxic bond feels strange, almost empty. You're so used to the emotional highs and lows, the tension, the longing, the hope braided with fear, that genuine peace feels foreign. But give it a little time, and the peace starts to feel like oxygen, like warmth, like coming home after wandering for far too long. Carl Jung would say this is the moment individuation begins, the moment the psyche stops reaching outward for someone to complete it and starts turning inward to reclaim its lost pieces. The projection has dissolved. The shadow has been acknowledged. The inner child has been seen. And slowly, the self begins to rise from the ashes of the old pattern, whole in a way it never had the chance to be before. You start noticing small things, how good it feels to breathe without anxiety, how comforting it is to trust your own intuition again, how powerful it is to set a boundary without apologizing for it. You realize the strength you kept trying to extract from another person was inside you all along, buried, forgotten, but never destroyed. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this is exactly what you are doing. Healing from toxic love isn't about forgetting the past. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were lost within it. It's about recognizing that the intensity you once chased wasn't love, it was unhealed longing. It's about understanding that real love is gentle, steady, rooted. It doesn't confuse you. It doesn't diminish you. It doesn't demand you abandon yourself to keep it alive. Real love aligns with your soul, not your wounds. And when you reach this understanding, something beautiful happens. You stop romanticizing chaos. You stop confusing emotional turbulence with depth. You stop chasing people who treat your heart like a riddle. Instead, you begin choosing what feels safe, what feels nourishing, what feels true. You begin choosing yourself. And in that choice, quiet, brave, sacred, you break the cycle. Not just for yourself, but for every future version of you who will no longer mistake pain for passion. You step into a new chapter with a clearer mind, a stronger spirit, and a heart finally aligned with its own truth. If this journey spoke to you, stay connected. More stories, more reflections, more soul-deep explorations await. A new path begins here, with you, whole at last.